Turning now to Iran and its proposal for a plan that would limit its nuclear program in return for decreased economic sanctions. It's looking like Iran's crippled economy has led to a change of heart. But of course, there's a catch. As part of the deal, Iran wants an acknowledgement of its right to enrich uranium. Needless to say, that caveat did not sit well with Israel's prime minister and kind of makes you wonder why it even needs enriched uranium if it's not making nukes, right? Here to dissect the situation is Middle East expert and Fox News contributor Lisa Daftari. What do you think about this?
Well, Israel has every right to say, look, we've seen this act being played out before. They're going to say they're going to make concessions. They're not going to make concessions. They're asking for a loosening of the sanctions. We see what the agenda is here, and let's not fall for it again. But the West seems very much eager to go along with what Iran's offering. However, they're saying that they're going to be cautious. They're saying that they want to see action before they loosen any of the sanctions. Yeah. But it seems like although there was no immediate resolution that came out of the Geneva conference over the last 2 days, they've set a date for November to continue the talks, and they seem pretty enthusiastic about something happening this time around.
Let's dissect it a little bit. They say they will constrain their nuclear program in exchange for an easing of sanctions. What constrain? What could that possibly mean?
Right. What could it possibly mean when, A, we have reason to believe that they're far enough along on their nuclear program to quickly produce a bomb, and B, they've already said that they won't stop the enrichment of uranium. So what does constrain really mean?
What are they hoping we think it means?
That it's a lot of beautiful vocabulary and that we fall for it again. I mean, we don't know any of the details of the talks, but a lot of the diplomats that were at the meeting said that this was the most detailed of the talks that they've had thus far.
Let me be the devil's advocate. I mean, the other side would say, we put these sanctions in place, they are squeezing the government, so now their posture has changed, they're coming to the table with something, everything we've done is working, so we should respond and continue down this path with them. What's wrong with that?
That's fine as long as the sanctions remain in place and the pressure remains on the government. And again, let's talk about the sanctions in terms of who it's affecting and how it's affecting Iran. They are being squeezed by the sanctions. Unfortunately, the biggest burden of the sanctions is on the people of Iran. So there's two economies. We have the Main Street economy and the regime's economy. And the mainstream economy is awful. Common goods are hard to come by. And when they are, there's inflation, and the prices of just basic food items are just so high that families can't afford to put food on the table. But at the same time, the regime has found loopholes to get around it and find the things that they do need. But they would still want the loosening of sanctions for two reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're not impactful. Why do they want to loosen?
A, you want to keep the people off the streets. Revolutions happen because people are hungry and there's no food and there's poverty and there's unemployment. We have all of those elements in place right now. So the regime wants to stay in place. And B, there are targeted sanctions where the regime might not have the supplies it needs. It has all the equipment it needs to actually complete the nuclear agenda. So we do know that there is an agenda here in terms of loosening the sanctions, going on with their nuclear program, and now making these concessions in order to, again, play out the clock as they have before.
You know, the show is called Money, so we like to follow the money as it goes around the world. You know, it's interesting to look at the impact of the sanctions. Realize that Iran has been rapidly accumulating pools of money in other countries. For example, China, India, Japan, South Korea, Turkey, places that are buying its oil, and then the money is just sitting there. I assumed that the money was clearing one way or the other, or there was a barter situation going on. I mean, a lot of that is going on.
A lot of that's going on. So you have to remember that the central bank in Iran is sanctions. So they cannot do business as usual. So they have found these unique loopholes or ways around it, but at the same time, it's still their oil output has still been cut by half. So it's a very, very significant cut in their economy. But as you said, if the
they're not getting paid in full.
They're not getting paid in full.
These other countries, the money is sitting. What's the impact of that? I mean, if there's money sitting in Japan, South Korea, Turkey, that's owed to Iran, why do we care about that?
So we care about that because we're the ones who have basically we're pulling the strings on that. So if we do give them the economic breathing space, imagine all this flooding into the country, and they are going to revive the economy the way that they want. They're going to, you know, strengthen their power at home. Meanwhile, let's talk about human rights. Business as usual back in Iran. The prisons are still being, you know, flooded with journalists and you know, Christians, and we know all these things are still going on. But, you know, the money is there, and we know that if we loosen the sanctions before we see any type of significant action,
then we're
giving them what they want.
Lisa, thank you so much for coming on. Always such great insight.